Okay, a percent means part of a whole. So in this first part, I'm going to ask you to change from a decimal to a percent to a decimal to a fraction, a fraction to a percent, and a percent to a fraction. Okay, now, the way that you change a decimal to a percent is you move the decimal place 2 places to the right. So I'm going to move it 2 places to the right. So we're going to say 1, 2, and so that's going to equal 48%. That's where you moved your decimal to, right there. So you just move it 2 places to the right. But now when you're going backwards and you start with a percent, you go in the opposite direction. So to change a percent to a decimal, the first thing we're going to do is drop the sign and move 2 places left. Goes backwards. So we're going to drop the sign. Right now my decimal is understood to be right here. So I'm going to move it 1, 2 places. So this is going to be 0.34. Now the percent sign is gone because I'm not writing as a percent anymore. So the first thing you do is drop the sign. Then you move 2 places left. Okay, let's look at this next one. Drop the sign, move 2 places left. There's 1, but there's 2. So that's where my new decimal is. But you'll see I have an extra place in that wave. I need to put a 0 there. So it's going to be 0.0521 without the percent sign. So to write a decimal as a percent, you move 2 places right and add the sign. To change it from a percent to a decimal, you go opposite. So you drop the sign and move 2 places left. So then I ask you to change a fraction to a percent. Okay, the way that I do this is with long division. So I take 4, I take 3. So the bottom number is your divisor, it goes outside the house. There's an understood decimal right there. That's where it would be in the division part. Okay, 4 goes into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. 4 goes into 25 times, and it goes evenly. So your answer for this one would be a 0.75. That's not your answer. Take that back. 0.75 is what it would look like as a decimal. Okay, so I know that's what it looks like as a decimal, but on our previous page, what I learned from that is once you get it to decimal form, you move it 2 places to the right and add the sign. So when I move it 2 places to the right and add the sign, I'm going to get this as 75%. So I did change it to a decimal, so we got that part, and we learned that a couple of weeks back, I think. But now we are going to change it to a percent. Okay, let's try the 9 one. 8 and 9, rather. Okay, that's how we're going to start it. So 9 goes into 80 8 times. Ugh. I see what's happening. So it's repeating eighths. Okay, so 8/9 equals 0.888, which is actually 0.8 repeating. Okay, and that's what it looks like as a decimal. But when I write it as a fraction, when I write it as a percent, if I take 0.8 repeating, that doesn't help me move the decimal. So I'm going to write it out just a little bit further. I'm going to write it like this for now. Remember, to make this into a percent, I'm going to move it 2 places to the right. So this is going to be 88 as the whole number, 0.8. And that's how it would look if it doesn't divide evenly. Okay, so that was the hard way. Changing a fraction to percent was hard way, but changing a percent to a fraction, that's going to be really easy. So look at this bottom one, changing 34% to a fraction. So remember earlier I told you that percent means part of a whole. So if you have 34%, that means 34 out of 100. Now we'll reduce that, but basically that's all you do. So 34 out of 100, they reduce by 2, so that would be 17 out of 50. And that's all you have to do with that one. Okay, so then you have 87.5. Now that's a little tougher. 0.5 means 5/10. So that's 87.5%. Now, well, you can say, well, 5/10 is also 1/2, so you can do that. Now, I ask you to change this to, let's see, change this to a fraction. So I know how to change it to a mixed number, but that's not going to be our case. So let me put this on hold and figure out the easiest way to show you guys. So even if you changed it, because this one kind of baffled me for a minute. So at first you think, oh, well, I've changed this to a fraction, but you didn't. You changed the 0.5 to a fraction, but it's still a percent, and so that's the bad part with this one. So what I think I'd want to do, instead of changing it to a percent here, I think that I would change it to a decimal first. So remember how to change this one to a decimal. I'm going to move it 2 places left, and it's 0.875. Now, that changed it to a decimal, but I asked you to change it to a fraction. So let's think about this one. This is 875, and you'll put it over its place. So remember, this is tenths, hundredths, thousandths. And then we can reduce. So if you read this out, it's 875 thousandths. You see it's 3 decimal places, and that's why you have the 3 zeros here, here, and here. And then we can just reduce it. Okay, 5 goes into 875. $175 times. And 5 goes into 1,000. $200 times. Well, I see those are still both divisible by 5. So 5 goes into 175. $35 times. And 5 goes into 200 40 times. Whew. It'll reduce one more time. 5 goes into this one 7 times, and 5 goes into this one 8 times. So finally, we have that 87.5% is the same thing as 7/8. Okay, our last one of these is to change 21/56 to a percent. Now what I notice about 21/56 is, first of all, it shares a common factor. So I know that this one is 3 times 7, and I know that this one is 8 times 7, so that's going to give me 3/8. So I reduced it first. So now we can actually divide 8 into 3. So it'll go 3 times, and it'll go 7 times, and it'll go 5 times. So this is going to be 0.375 as a decimal. So to write it as a percent, remember I move it 2 places over, and so it's going to be 37.5%. And that's how that piece would look.